Oh, I didn't add myself to the stream. I was just talking over the screen. Sorry about that. Still working out some StreamYard stuff. I'm used to my restream. Raider, could you hear me at all? Like that entire diatribe I just went on? So did we just completely waste like the first 10 minutes, Michael? Is that what I'm getting out of this? Now I'm worried that my microphone isn't working at all. What the hell did I do? No. Seems like it's working. Well, I'm an idiot. Okay, good. So anyway, what I was saying, let's just restart. So what I was okay, good. Glad to hear it. Sorry, like I said, I'm used to Restream. We moved to StreamYard, and it's been tricky to kind of get it the same settings how I had it on Restream, because Restream you can stream right through OBS, like a desktop streaming utility, and StreamYard is all in the browser, so I'm getting used to it. Anyway, so what I was saying is this game, Cowboys are favored by 5.5 now. Before the season, this was a 7-point spread, and this week it opened, I think, at 3.5 or 4, which wasn't working. Okay. And so I think the market has kind of moved a little too far towards the Giants here. Personally, I think I like the Dallas side of this game, betting wise and DFS wise. I mean, I know we're going to get to a lot of Cowboys anyway because they're favored, but I am. If you go look at the Cowboys, they start the season and they really, really beat up on the Browns before we knew kind of the Browns are bad, and then they had that really weird game against New Orleans where they fell behind early. New Orleans hit on a couple big high variance plays that swung that game, and then they kind of fell behind and then just weren't able to rally at all. And then last week was kind of the same thing as Baltimore. They fell way behind and then had to kind of claw their way back and almost stole that game at the very end. And if you look at the Giants to start the season, I don't remember, who did they play week 1? Daniel Jones looked completely lost week 1. I'm blanking on who they played. Let me look. Oh yeah, they lost to the Vikings. I remember because I stacked up that game with the Donald Jefferson and some neighbors. But anyway, Vikings dominated the Giants at home. Daniel Jones looked completely lost. Neighbors, I think, had 2 targets in that game. Either 2 targets or 2 catches, one of the two, and it looked like he was going to quit on the team. At the end of the game, it looked like he was done. Oh, he ended up with 5 catches in that game. And then the next week they go and play at Washington, who's had the worst defense in the league so far. I believe they're still the worst. We look at them on RBSDM, runningbacksdon'tmatter.com. Defensive EPA, Washington by far the worst defense by EPA per play. I mean, look at how bad. Here's the drop back EPA. So this is like the passing, how efficient the defense is at defending passes. By far the worst. 0.5 point every time. Every time a team drops back against Washington, they earn 0.5 expected points per play. That's unbelievable. And a 57% success rate too is just ridiculous. So long story short, New York goes in there and Neighbors has a big game, and Daniel Jones looks a little better, but it's against the worst defense in the league. And then last week, they still lose that game. They get 3 touchdowns. They have a weird situation where the kicker's hurt and he can't play. So they lose that game. And then last week they go in and they also beat Cleveland in Cleveland, but they only scored, I believe, I want to make sure I'm right about this. They scored 21 points. They won 21-15 against Cleveland. They got 340 yards, but the real problem for Cleveland was the 217 total yards, and that's just Deshaun Watson has been bad to start the year. So Cleveland is in such a bad spot right now. I don't know what to take away from the Giants game last week. And Malik Neighbors looked incredible, especially last week. I mean, he just looked like he's the best rookie receiver, right? And before the draft, you remember, it's kind of seen as Marvin Harrison Jr. was on his own tier, and then you had Neighbors. It's kind of like that second tier, and Neighbors just looked like the best rookie receiver. but he still has Daniel Jones throwing to him, which is a huge problem. So just in general on this game, I like the Dallas side. I'm not really a fan of getting to much neighbors here. I mean, I know everybody's going to want to click on his name, and he's so expensive. He's more expensive than Dak. He's $1,000 less expensive than CD. And I mean, the Giants are obviously trying to feed him the ball. I think he has a 56% air yard share, which is just like the total air yards on the team. That's how many he has 56% of the total air yards on the team. And his target share is ridiculous too. And they're targeting him pretty much at all levels of the field. So he's getting deep balls, deep targets. They're throwing short stuff to him so he can use his yards after catch ability. So he's a good play, but personally, like if this ownership, 54% combined on DraftKings, I believe he's even more owned on FanDuel. Maybe 33%. So right around CD's ownership on FanDuel. I just personally, I'll get him if I can, and there's some good value today that we can get to make it possible to play him and CD. But I much prefer the CD spot in this game. The other thing too is Dallas. The Giants have a bunch of injuries at corner right now. Adoree Jackson and somebody else is out, and then Deontay Banks last week got smoked by Amari Cooper. So their secondary is really hurting. And meanwhile, Dallas secondary isn't nearly as beat up. They still have kind of the brand names like Diggs at corner, and the running game is really how teams have attacked them so far this year with Kamara, and so on. And so if the Giants are going to stay in this game, and I do think there's going to be points here, I don't think this is going to be like maybe it'll be like a 30-3 game, but I don't think it's going to be like a 17-16 or something, or like that Washington 21-18 game the Giants had. I think there's going to be points here, and I think if they do it, it's going to be on the ground with Singletary. And then I kind of like Wan'Dale Robinson here as the pivot off of the cheap pivot off of Neighbors. I mean, Wan'Dale doesn't get nearly the volume that Neighbors does, and he doesn't get the downfield targets that Neighbors does. At least Neighbors has had so far in the last 2 weeks. But Wan'Dale also gets they like throwing the ball underneath, lots of screen stuff for him. So I kind of like him as the pivot off of what I expect to be chalky Malik Neighbors. So kind of going along those lines of how I think this game's going to go. First of all, with our new little boost feature, I'm going to go ahead and bump CD up. And I'm going to just kind of reduce Neighbors manually. So I'm going to bring down to like 16. And I still think he has crazy upside, so I'm going to turn his projection down, but I'm going to leave I'm going to actually increase the standard deviation. So basically, I'm decreasing his median outcome, but I'm going to increase his range of outcomes, if that makes sense. Because he does have a wide tail of outcomes here. And I want to make sure I'm not completely excluding Malik Neighbors from my builds. And do I really want to... I don't know if I want to boost Devin Singletary. I guess the other thing to talk about here is Brandon Aubrey has been like the greatest kicker of all time through the last 3 weeks. I mean, he looks like he can hit field goals from 70 yards. Some of these kicks he's hitting are just absolutely ridiculous. So he's definitely viable just because for kickers, you get them 6 points if he hits a 60-yarder. I think it's 5 points if you get a 50-yarder. And basically when the Cowboys cross midfield, he's in range. And so he's super viable here. And I believe he's like, if you put him up against all running backs, I think he's the 6th highest scoring running back as a kicker. So it just shows how ridiculous he's been. And I don't know if I'd ever play him at captain, especially because I expect he's going to get ownership. But he's definitely viable in flex builds. So the other thing I wanted to do, let me make sure. Let's drop the Giants projection down because I like the Dallas spot. I just dropped the Giants defense projection a little bit. Anybody else I really want to? I think that's about it for this. I guess the other thing to talk about is the Cowboys have like 4 different running backs that you could play in this game, and they play every game. So Rico Dowdle is a starter, but he hasn't been, in my opinion, very impressive. He definitely hasn't maintained much of a hold on the starting job. Then you have Zeke back in Dallas. In my opinion, he's still a fine play, 6,200. He's $200 less than Rico Dowdle. and you're getting an ownership discount on Zeke versus Dowdle. But like I said, I think this is going to be a passing game for the Cowboys. And so we also have Deuce Vaughn, who got snaps last week, and when the game was close as well. It wasn't like he was in a blowout run. He was getting like key snaps last week. He would be what we look for in a passing game or a game where the Cowboys fall behind, I believe. And then we have Hunter Lepke, who's like the 4-stringer, but he's getting carries on goal line and in passing down work. So he's super viable at $800, right? You just need he is how you can fit the neighbors CD DAC builds. And you could do like a Tolbert CD DAC neighbors Lepke, and you still have salary left to burn. So anyway, then I'm going to run with these are my default Showdown settings. 50,000 sims per generation, 7 generations. Let's go ahead and turn up our lineup holdover percent. And 75% of my weight for my lineup scoring is on ROI. 5% is across the board, and then 10% on win percentage. For this slate, I'm going to leave lineup salary up a little bit to 47,000. I think that's fine. On some of the lower total games or games where I don't expect much scoring, I usually dip this down to like 45,000, 46,000. But for this slate, we can leave it as is. And then one other thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and go to Dowdle, Zeke. I'm just going to set some negative correlations between these guys. Now, it is definitely possible that you get the Giants the Cowboys 4 rushing touchdowns, and Dowdle and Zeke both get 1 or whatever. But just in general, like for my builds, I don't really want these guys. In the same lineup for the most part. Now, what I'm going to do here, I'm not going to mess with the Dowdle and the cheap running backs. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to apply a negative correlation to the 2 cheap Cowboys running backs. And so this way, like I really don't want to have a lineup where I have a punt with Deuce Vaughn and a punt with Hunter Lepke, you know? And so let's just go ahead and apply a negative correlation between those 2 guys. And anything else? This seems fine. Let me make sure I have standard deviations on everybody. I need to update this in the projections. Right here. So we can go ahead and run this one. Take a couple minutes to run. See where we're at with our builds. While we're waiting, Get Lineups is loaded. So getlineups.com. If you just want the whole point of this site is like if you just want to sweat the game, we put up the showdowns for the island games. Then we put up the main slate lineups as well. So all it is just super easy. Just pick the game you want, pick the contest size or the specific contest you want, and then pick who you want to boost and who you want to limit. So I want to boost CD. I want to limit elite neighbors, just like that. Super easy. It's made to use on your phone. You can choose what kind of risk tolerance you have on the lineups you get, and then you just get my lineups. And then it takes about 30 seconds, and we'll spit back out 20 lineups you can use, and with some AI summaries that explains I lost my train of thought. Oh, it just shows you some AI summaries of what makes lineups we're giving you good, and in the context of the slate. So we have like some AI stuff that's hitting and understanding context of salaries and builds and etc. So pretty decent tool if you just want to sweat a game. You don't want to put too much thought into like a DFS slate. This one seems frozen. I don't know why. What I did. Let's try rerunning that and see if it's just stuck. We've been having a weird bug where sometimes if you start a job, you'll get stuck at data routed or at validating data, and we haven't figured out what the problem is. But if you see it just get stuck here and you don't see any progress in like 15 seconds, then you can just assume the job's failed, and you can just go back to sim opto and it reloads all your settings. That's okay. So I have some runs that from earlier stuff I did, so we can get an idea of what we're getting for exposures. So right away we get a weird Jake. This is for the 500K to first tonight. So we get a weird Jake Ferguson captain, bunch of Giants, and the Giants defense. We could probably just throw this one out. And really, we can. I don't really want to play the Giants defense at all. I understand why they might be a good play. Nobody's going to play them. You get some interesting double defense builds here with the kicker. But for me, I'm just going to take a stand here and unfocus on Greg Joseph. And I'm just going to go ahead and set my exposure on Giants defense to 0. We're going to do that. Excuse me. And now we're getting into some builds that I actually like. So here we get some Dak captain. Makes sense. Let's check on his ownership. So he's the highest owned captain tonight, which is kind of surprising to me, actually. I would expect CD to be the highest owned captain, but we're getting some Dak captain. That's fine. High floor. You're almost definitely not going to get killed by having a Dak captain lineup. You just got to make sure you're getting your unique elsewhere. Eliminate Dow 1 from primary stacks. Oh yeah, good point. We could show that off. So another way to get rid of the Jake Ferguson nonsense is to go into. Do we even have Dow 1? Or did I? Or maybe I think we got rid of it when I filtered out the Giants defense. But anyway, we can go in here and we can specifically eliminate. Like, I don't want a Giants 5 stack or whatever. We can eliminate that. So we're back looking at some Dak captain builds. All these seem fine to me. I kind of like this one here with the Devin Singletary captain. Like I said, teams have been killing the Cowboys on the ground. If the Giants have success tonight, that's where I think they're gonna score points. So I like the idea here of getting Singletary captain. It's interesting pairing him with Cowboys defense here. I mean, this is the Daniel Jones is productive, but throws a pick 6 or something. And one thing about the Cowboys defense last year, they were very opportunistic with their turnovers. So I don't mind that at all. I also don't mind playing Cowboys defense with Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones can get there on the ground. He can scramble around, and he can also throw picks. So I don't mind this build either here. Definitely different to play the quarterback. Normally, I wouldn't play the defense with the quarterback captain, but in this case, I don't mind it. Not much CD captain. 6% of the top 150 lineup, 6% have a CD Lamb captain. That's pretty interesting. It basically, the Sims are definitely leaning towards having the Dak captain. If you're going to go expensive captain, it's Dak. And part of the reason I would assume is that there's a lot of cheap pass catchers with them, and it's hard to build good lineups with CD captain and Dak and Daniel Jones and like Neighbors or whoever. So that part makes sense to me. 49% Dak captain is pretty aggressive though. So let's. He's projected for 16, I believe, 60% ownership. So let's go ahead and turn this down to like 25%. So we just type in our exposure filter, Dak captain, 25%. We'll apply it. And now how much CD Lamb captain do we have? Now we're up to 11% CD captain. That's not bad. The other thing I'd point out is now we're getting a lot of Wandale. That's like 63%. He's actually the highest on utility player right now. I don't mind it. If I'm not playing Malik Neighbors, and I don't believe there's much in these builds, only 21% Malik Neighbors at utility. And I would assume there's even you were a captain, 7% captain, it makes sense to me that we would go to the other pass catcher, the other viable pass catcher. I mean, you can get weird and play Slayton or Theo Johnson, but seems like it's going to be one of, if the Giants pass catchers are going to be one of Neighbors or Wandale or both. Yeah, this is something we're trying to add to, John. The filtering by captain. Another way we might do it is to have like a, so similar to on our team exposure, how we have primary stack, secondary stack. Could also kind of split the pain kind of like that and have a captain and utility. The only problem with that is you can't see both at once if we were to do it that way. We got to kind of figure out a nicer way to do it. And actually, I wonder if, no, okay, that didn't work. I was going to see if maybe if we can kind of cheat the search filters a little bit by searching for CPT to get all the captains to the top. But that doesn't seem to work. Anything else worth pointing out in these builds? 29. So we're getting 29% Cowboys defense. I don't mind that. You know, I think it's over on the utility ownership for Dallas. Yeah, so we'd be over by about 10% of what our projected ownership is for Dallas. I hear it, 19.86%, 29% Cowboys in this build. That's fine with me. How much captain? No Cowboys captain. And another thing we can look at is Rico Dowdle, 32% of flex, 4% captain, Zeke 19%, and no Zeke captain. But I don't really. I'm gonna be coming in under the field. I would guess in my final lineups I play tonight. I'm gonna be coming in under the field on like all the Cowboys running backs. I'd rather just attack the passing game. It's the easiest way. The problem with the Cowboys running backs, I mean, it's Showdown, so every player is viable. But the problem with the Cowboys running backs is really, really difficult. If it's a game where the Cowboys win because they run the ball, it's really hard to decide which of the running backs that favors the most, right? But we know if the Cowboys win because they just throw all over the Giants defense, then we know who's going to profit off that. It's going to be Dak. It's going to be CeeDee Lamb. It's going to be one of Cooks or Tolbert, and it's going to be Jake Ferguson. And then maybe one of these running backs like Lepke, Vaughn, or Zeke as a pass catcher. And so it's a lot easier to figure out from that point what the optimal lineups are going to be, assuming that taking our stand that the passing game for Dallas is where it's going to come from. Click the column filter. Wait, what do you mean, Chan? No way. Click the column filter. Are you talking about something else? Oh. Yeah, we can also check our captains this way. So we just wanted to completely exclude a certain captain. For some reason, like we have a Deuce Vaughn captain, check the button, you'd exclude it. Is that what you meant, Chan? Oh, that's the other thing you were saying, right? So if I wanted to eliminate, now I feel like an idiot. So in our stack columns, primary stack and Showdown is always the stack that has the captain. So this first lineup, Dak captain, 4 Cowboys. Second lineup, Dak captain, 2 Cowboys. So we have a Dow 4, Dow 2. So if we wanted to exclude those Cowboys 1, Giants 5, you can go into our filter primary stack and just uncheck. You know, I don't want to uncheck Giants 1, but I want to make sure that if I want to, I don't want Giants 1 to be like Daniel Jones 1, right? The only Giants 1 I really want is Malik Neighbors, because he's the only one with the upside to where he could be in a 1-5 lineup, right? So I'm not going to uncheck Giants 1, but I will go through my lineups and just check and make sure if I have any Giants 1s. Actually, perfect. Here's a Neighbors Giants 1 right there. Neighbors, Prescott, Dowdle, Tolbert, Cowboys, Aubrey. Now, I mean, it seems ridiculous to have a 1-5 like this, and there's actually 2 of them back to back. But Malik Neighbors has such an unbelievable amount of the Giants' air yard share, target share, etc., and he's such a big part of the game plan. Absolutely possible that he scores 2 touchdowns, has 100 yards receiving, and everybody else in the Giants is just terrible. So I don't mind these Neighbors 1-5s. But like if I saw a Singletary 1-5, I don't want to play that. I mean, I guess it's possible that Singletary could have a huge game too, but he doesn't. In my opinion, he does not have the upside that Malik Neighbors does. Like this one here, I would just exclude from my build. And really, like, I mean, we can just do this. And I mean, we could go through all of the Giants captains and eliminate all of them until I was down to just Singletary and Neighbors, and that would be fine. I mean, that would be very aggressive strategy for 150 lineups for sure. I don't know if I'd max enter the main contest doing that, but to me, those are really the only 2 viable Giants captains tonight. Just the way I think this game's going to go. And at some point in Showdown, you have to kind of choose a narrative. Like you Showdown's unique because you can kind of. Everybody always says if you 150 max the classic slate, you can just get every combination. And it's obviously more true in Showdown because there are a limited number of combinations. But in my opinion, the much, much better strategy for Showdown is to pick one narrative or a couple narratives for how you think game's going to go and just build your lineups around that. And if you're wrong about how the game's going to go, you know, that's fine. But let's say you chose like, okay, I think there's going to be a Cowboys blowout or Cowboys win a close, high-scoring game, or Cowboys don't show up in this game. The Giants are motivated and they win by a lot. And I just choose the 3 narratives and I kind of build that way. That you're covering a lot more of the potential combinations for getting the optimal lineup. Because in Showdown, you in the large contest, you absolutely have to have the optimal lineup. Anything else? I don't think there's much else to add. They're already limited Dak captain here, so that would be good. I guess we can look at FanDuel because I'll be playing over there tonight. Let's pull up. Here's the main. We'll pull up 150. FanDuel Showdown really sucks in my opinion because it's only 4 spots and everybody's the same price. It's really, really hard to be unique. It's much harder than on Draftkings, and the prices aren't as good. But I mean, because there's no captain salary penalty like there's on Draftkings, we just get a huge amount of Dak, and 90% Dak, 76% Daniel Jones. So I would immediately filter this down. I don't remember what my projected ownership is on FanDuel for Daniel Jones. Yeah, 40% flex, 11% MVP. I'd probably limit that. Below that, maybe 25%, and hope for the best. Yeah, you can just see there's just an inordinate amount of Dak here. I mean, the top 3 lineups are all Dak captain, Malik Neighbors captain, Daniel Jones captain, CD captain, and then back to Dak captains all the way down. And on FanDuel, because you don't have the salary penalty, it's just that the quarterbacks have the highest medians. They're the safest. They're the best floors of all these players. So that's why they're always going to sim better. When we get the error, we made the robot angry. Is it just a refresh that resets it? Yeah. The easy way. Oh, wait. Are you talking about get lineups? I don't remember where the robot angry message is. So here's the output of the get lineups like I was showing earlier. So here we have a let's just do. Show you guys some of these. There we go. Yep. Wandale has a quote in it, apostrophe. Yeah. Yeah, we'll have that fixed. Not a big issue. I'm kind of jumping between things, but here's the output of get lineups. I forgot I was going to show that earlier. Here's the CD15. I don't know if I'd play this. This I said high risk, and these are definitely high risk. Wandale 1-5. I wouldn't play this. And so here's the AI summary, just explaining why like Wandale in this build is super unique, as it's saying, right? And you have the DAC CD combination. So anyway, getlineups.com, pretty cool website. So is AceMind.com. Although I feel like I messed something up with this to make me I have to check the logs and see what's going on here, why these aren't running when I put these. I think it might have something to do with the correlations. Anything else? I don't think there's anything else I really want to touch on here. FanDuel definitely has some more unique builds, some more 1-5s for the Giants or 1-4s. But like, I don't want to play Daniel Jones 1-4s. Just get rid of that. But there was a neighbors one. You can see the difference in projections here by just going with the neighbors instead of Dak, a captain. But I really don't mind this one here. You know, if I'm going to play a lot of lineups on FanDuel, that makes sense to me. There's also a lot more Giants defense on here. Here's a nice. This is a nice double defense lineup on FanDuel. It also leaves a bunch of money on the table, which is really what you need to do on FanDuel to get unique. It's really hard to get unique just with the lineup itself. But yeah, I think that's it. All right, I'll take a look at the correlations here in a minute once I jump off the stream. But any other questions about the game tonight or anything about how to use our site, anything like that? All right, that's it for me. Thanks for tuning in, you guys. Good luck tonight. Chan and I will be back on at 3 p.m. Pacific tomorrow to talk about the main slate, so the classic. Should be like an hour-long stream probably. I think it's actually going to be there's a lot of ugly games, but I think that's going to make it kind of an interesting slate to talk about. Figure out where you want to attack, because there's one really obvious spot that everybody's going to want to get to, one game anyway. So we got to kind of figure out how we want to strategize around that. So with that, good luck again. See y'all.